Welcome to my CBSE English teacher. Today let's learn the lesson from the diary of Annie Frank from class 10 Language and Literature First Flight. About the author. Annie Frank was a German-born Dutch Jewish diarist. She gained fame posthumously with the publication of The Diary of a Young Girl, in which she documents her life in hiding from 1942 to 1944 during the German occupation of the Netherlands in World War II. It is one of the world's best known books and has been the basis for several plays and films. Here is a summary of the chapter. The narrator says that paper has more capacity to absorb thoughts than people. People have low patience levels, but a piece of paper, being a non living thing, would not refuse to absorb her thoughts. This realization came to her one day when she was feeling more sad and confused than usual. She could not even decide whether to go out or stay at home at that time. She finally decided to stay at home. She was depressed and in deep thought. She decided to write everything that came to her mind. She did not want someone to read it unless she found a real friend. By real friend, she meant that a friend with whom she could share everything. The author then comes back to the point where she thought of beginning to write. It is because she is lonely and has no friend to talk to. She explains why she feels the need for a friend. She feels that no one is going to believe that a young girl like her is so alone, which practically she is not. She has a loving family with about 30 people who can be called friends, loving aunts, and a good place to stay. This shows a clear picture of a happy family, but the one thing that lacks in her life is the presence of a true friend with whom she can share everything. She does have a good time with friends. They talk about stuff, but not real stuff that is actually going on in their lives. Despite trying hard, they are unable to get closer. She feels that maybe it is her who is not able to trust anyone with her private stuff, that she is not able to come any close to her friends. She feels that the current situation cannot be changed and thus she needs to write her feelings in the diary. The author does not want to list all the facts in a formal manner. This is because she wanted to give her need for a friend a shape and thus decides to name the diary as Kitty. Hoping that someone would read her diary one day, she thinks that writing without giving details about the background story would be ineffective, so she gives brief details about her life. She says that her father is the most lovable father one could get. Her father married her mother when he was at the age of 36 and she was 25. She and her sister Margaret were both born in Frankfurt. As soon as Annie turned 4, her father moved to Holland, followed by her mother in September, while both the sisters stayed with their grandmother in Aachen. Margaret was also sent to Holland in December, followed by Annie in February, who was brought as a birthday present for Margaret. Annie was sent to Montessori Nursery School in Holland. She started from first form. She had Mrs. Kuperus, the headmistress, as her teacher in the sixth form, who even cried at the time of farewell. In 1941, the author's birthday could not be celebrated well because her grandmother fell ill and underwent an operation. Unfortunately, her grandmother left them in January 1942. Annie misses her grandmother more than anyone. This year's birthday was to be celebrated with great zeal so as to compensate for last year's. She then says that her family is doing well, which sums up her background and brings her to the present date of June 20, 1942, when she is writing her diary. On June 20, 1942, Annie began writing in her diary, addressing it as her friend Kitty. When she mentions how her entire class is nervous about their results, it is unpredictable and will be decided by a meeting of teachers in which they will select students to be moved to the next class or kept back. Many students were making bets. Some had put in their entire sum of savings at stake. She and her friend G also made fun of the nervous boys. They kept on saying to each other that I am not going to pass, while others would console them and say, Yes, you would. G was polite as she tried to stop them from making noise while Annie scolded them, but none of it worked. According to Annie, about a quarter of class should not be allowed to pass because they hardly respond or take part in any of the activities. She refers to them as dummies. But this may not be the case because teachers' decisions can't be predicted. The author is not bothered about her friends because she is sure that they will pass. The only subject she is unsure about is mathematics. She seems to be having a tough time with the subject, but all they could do was wait for the results and not lose their hope. She tells how she has a great relationship with all her teachers except the math professor. He was constantly irritated by the author's talkativeness. Despite several warnings, Annie did not stop talking in his classes, which prompted him to give her extra homework as punishment. The first one was to write an essay on Chatterbox, which she thought was a weird topic to write. For the moment, she wrote the topic in her notebook, kept it in her bag, and focused on staying quiet. The author came across the note she made as a reminder for the essay after she had finished the rest of her homework. She began thinking about the topic. While chewing the tip of my fountain pen is a gesture that signifies a person is in deep thinking. While anyone could mention random stuff, she wanted to present concrete arguments in support of talking. She mentioned that she will try to better herself as a student, but talking is something that cannot be eliminated completely. This is because she got it as an inherited trait from her mother, and this is how she ended up writing 3 pages on the topic. The professor found Annie's arguments to be amusing, but when he did not stop talking in the next lesson too, he gave her yet another assignment as punishment. The topic was an incorrigible chatterbox. Incorrigible refers to a bad habit that is difficult to change. He gave her this topic because he was annoyed of her unstoppable chattering during his lessons. On receiving this assignment, the professor did not say anything to her for a while, but when he lost his patience, he handed her yet another assignment as punishment on the topic. Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. When the professor scolded her for the third time and punished her, the whole class started laughing. As a result, she had to pretend to be amused too. After writing twice on similar topics, she ran out of thoughts. Thus, her friend Sani, who was good at poetry, offered to help her write in rhyme. The whole assignment scenario was to make Annie feel ashamed, but she made sure that she gave an effective reply. She finally wrote her third assignment in the form of a poem, which turned out to be great. She wrote a satire that a father swan bit his 3 baby ducklings to death because of their noisy nature. To her good luck, the professor took it lightly. The professor recited the entire poem in front of the class while giving his own remarks simultaneously. The author, being fortunate enough, talked uninterruptedly after this incident without any further homework as punishment. Also, Mr. Keesing, the professor, started cracking jokes every now and then in front of the class. Question and answers. Question number 1. Why does Annie want to keep a diary? Answer. Annie wanted to keep a diary and write in it because she had a lot of things going on in her head. She had no friends with whom she could talk about such personal stuff. Thus, she decided to maintain a diary. Question number 2. Annie says teachers are most unpredictable. Is Mr. Keesing unpredictable? How? Answer. Yes, Mr. Keesing is an unpredictable person. He is angry with Annie for being talkative in class and gives her extra assignments as a punishment. but later he finds her essays to be witty and amusing. This brings a change in him and he accepts her arguments. He develops a funny bone too and starts cracking jokes in the class. This change in Mr. Keesing's nature shows that he is unpredictable. Question number 3. Why does Annie need to give a brief sketch about her family? Does she treat Kitty as an insider or an outsider? Answer. Annie feels it would be weird to just simply jot down facts without giving her background. In case someone might read it in future, he or she won't be able to understand vaguely stated facts. Thus, she decided to provide a brief sketch of her life. She treats Kitty as an insider, as if it was her only true friend with whom she could share each and everything. I hope you liked this video. For more interesting videos, do subscribe to my CBSE English teacher. Thank you for watching.